Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we got some breaking news that we've got to go over, because if you guys are like me, I love Kate Middleton. I love the royals. I think they are just absolutely amazing. And this video is titled, "After 20 years, the former royal gardener finally breaks his silence on Kate Middleton, and it's not good." And as bad as I do not want to hear anything negative about her, because she's just the people's princess, just like Princess Diana was, then I've got to hear it, and it's just come out. So let's get into it together. Please leave a like for the video and subscribe to the channel. Here we go.
It's just that he was taken in and he had some treatment done, and it's just had some side effects.
The world of British royalty has always been shrouded in secrecy, but today, that veil lifts. After 2 decades of loyal service and steadfast silence, former royal gardener Jack Stokes has decided to speak out about what he witnessed during his time tending the manicured grounds of Kensington Palace.
It's not unusual that they might not feel the need to tell anybody because it's routine treatment.
I've kept these secrets for 20 years, Stokes revealed in an exclusive interview, his weathered hands trembling slightly. But it's time to tell the truth about Kate Middleton. His revelation comes at a time when Kensington Palace headlines are spiraling, and rumors about the Princess of Wales are at a boiling point. The question on everyone's mind is, why break his silence now? He's seen what the cameras never catch, and while some of what he reveals is admirable, other parts might leave you wondering if all is well behind those polished palace gates. Now, this isn't a scandal. This isn't gossip. This is a first-hand account from someone who has just been observing and listening, but never saying a word. And what he reveals might just change the way you see the Princess of Wales forever. The man behind the hedges. He never wore a crown, but he served the crown. For 20 years, he remained invisible by choice. He is known only to a small circle within Kensington Palace. He is the royal gardener who quietly tended to the grounds that became home to some of the world's most photographed people. But while cameras pointed toward royal balconies, he was behind the hedges, listening to what was never said out loud. Stokes wasn't looking to stir scandal. He had no interest in fueling conspiracy theories, but he did want to set the record straight from someone who had been there, quietly watching things unfold day after day. When asked directly what he thought of Kate, his answer surprised everyone. "It's not good, but it's not what you think." The phrase caught fire. Speculation skyrocketed. Was there something dark happening inside the palace? Was Kate struggling behind the scenes? Was the fairy tale cracking? But when pressed, the gardener clarified with something far more nuanced and, arguably, more human. Before we get to that, let's hear what he said about the People's Princess 2.0. He started his post during Queen Elizabeth's reign. This was a time when tradition was untouchable and discretion was currency. Through autumns filled with ceremonial preparation and springs lined with royal rose tours, he worked in silence. Royals came and went, press candles flared and faded, but he stayed rooted, just like the oaks he pruned. "I wasn't there to make friends," he explained. "I was there to keep the gardens alive." But after a while of working in such a place, you notice that the plants aren't the only things growing or wilting. The biggest shift came when Kate Middleton entered the picture. She was not there as a royal yet, but just as a curious, observant girlfriend of Prince William. From the first few visits, he noticed something unusual about her. Unlike others who offered a nod and kept walking, she asked questions. "What's this flower? Is this one easy to grow anywhere?" Most thought it was polite small talk, but he saw it as something else, a genuine presence. He'd worked under royals who rarely glanced his way. Kate not only acknowledged him, she remembered his name and even asked if the bulbs he planted the previous fall had bloomed. And yet, as the years passed, that same attentiveness evolved into something more complex. She didn't just visit the gardens. She escaped to see them, often alone, often without an entourage. One morning, long before the staff had finished setting up for an event, she wandered in at dawn. He was raking near the greenhouse when he saw her. No makeup, hair loosely tied, just pacing slowly through the gravel path. She looked tired. That moment stayed with him, because in it, he didn't see a duchess like everyone else. He saw a woman who looked like she was carrying something too heavy for the world to see. And maybe that's when the seed was planted.
I really wonder if this is a guy that fell in love with Kate Middleton, the way the story is seeming to go, but let's see first.
The idea that his years of quiet observation weren't just passing thoughts, but pieces of a larger story, A story where kindness could be exhausting, where appearances masked pressure, and where one of the most beloved women in Britain was, in truth, quietly unraveling behind the scenes. He didn't want to betray trust. He never planned to speak. But after 20 years of watching, listening, and understanding things between the lines, he felt the world needed context. Not a scandal, definitely not an expose, just context. Because sometimes it's not what's seen from the outside that matters, it's what's happening behind the hedges. 20 years in the royal shadows. For 2 decades, Stooks walked the same winding paths, pruned the same ancient trees, and trimmed the same ivy walls that stood as silent witnesses to royal history. But behind the hedge clippers and watering cans, he was paying attention not just to the flowers, but to the people. And what he saw, over time, turned into a story far more human than most would expect from within palace gates. He wasn't just a gardener. He was a fly on the wall of a world the public only sees in parades, waves, and portraits. He saw what happened between the events. He saw the quiet tension before public appearances, the barely there glances exchanged during rehearsed family strolls, the occasional raised voice muffled by double-glazed windows. You learn to hear without eavesdropping, he confessed. People don't notice the gardener. They assume you're part of the scene. And that invisibility gave him access not to secrets, but to truths. Subtle, unspoken truths. He noticed who gave thanks and who didn't. Who arrived early for public engagements and who seemed to resent them. Who looked at the staff like people and who looked through them. But the most fascinating presence and the most unpredictable one was Kate. He watched her go from being the girlfriend with a shy smile to a future queen in waiting. At first, she was a quiet observer, always respectful, never too familiar. But even then, she had an aura of intensity. Not arrogance, not superiority, just focus. She walked like someone with a purpose, even when there wasn't a camera nearby. But over time, he saw a shift. She became more polished, more controlled, yet more distant, less spontaneous. She began...
That is to be, you know, in palace life and everything, they teach you and they prepare you to be a royal, so that's expected. I mean, I don't see anything out of the ordinary there. So far so good. Kate Middleton's still an A+ in my book.
And to master the royal walk, the measured wave, and the poised smile. But in the quieter moments, when the press had packed up and the guests had left, he noticed the moments when the mask would momentarily slip. A long sigh, a pause by the garden gate, a distant stare into the tree line like she was trying to lose herself in the branches. And then there were the overheard fragments, never enough to quote, but always enough to feel. A whispered, "I'm fine," that didn't sound fine. A forced laugh at a joke no one made. A soft, half-audible "just breathe" before walking into a crowd. He never judged. That wasn't his place. But he did worry. Because royalty changes people, even the good ones. Especially the good ones. He stayed silent through weddings, pregnancies, and controversies. He watched from a respectful distance as Kate became one of the most admired women in the world. But the admiration came with a cost. And after years in the royal shadows, he couldn't help but wonder, when everyone sees you as perfect, who do you get to be when no one's looking? The answer to this question is what is bad about Kate Middleton. Strained smiles and hidden gardens. Gardens don't lie. That's something the former royal gardener believes deeply. Flowers either flourish or fade away. Trees either bend under the weight of the world or stand proud and strong. Plants react to their surroundings, the care they receive, and the love they're given. And, he knows, people are no different. Throughout the years, he observed the royals as they strolled through the palace grounds, sometimes accompanied by photographers, other times in solitude. Yet, no one frequented the gardens as much or lingered as long as Kate Middleton. And it wasn't just for show. In fact, her visits often happened when no one else was around.
I bet the woman needed time to breathe, needed time to reflect, needed time to think about everything that was going on. She's expected to be happy and smile all the time. Could you imagine that stress on someone? So I don't blame her at all. I would escape to the garden too.
He referred to them as her quiet visits, early mornings and late afternoons, Sometimes she'd be dressed in heels and a coat dress, while other times she'd opt for trainers and a hoodie. She would meander slowly, taking a moment to touch the lavender or sit quietly on a stone bench beneath the birch trees. There was something about her presence in the gardens that felt different. She seemed more at peace, yet also somewhat distant, as if she were trying to recall something important, or perhaps trying to let it go. She used to greet everyone with a smile, the gardener reminisced, but there were days when that smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Those days weren't just coincidences. He began to notice they often followed significant events. Typically, they came after harsh media scrutiny or tightly packed public schedules. One morning, following a particularly scathing tabloid article critiquing her appearance at a state banquet, she arrived in the garden early, long before anyone else was expected. She didn't say a word. Instead, she wandered the paths in silence, her gaze downcast, hands tightly clasped behind her back. He offered a polite nod as she passed. She barely noticed. There was this one time when he noticed her after what he guessed was a tough phone call. She had been pacing around the greenhouse, her phone glued to her ear, and then she just stayed in the garden for almost an hour, standing there in the rain without an umbrella. It wasn't for show. It was as if she didn't even notice the downpour. She was trying to pull herself together, he remarked. I recognized that look. It's the expression of someone bottling up more than they can handle. As time went on, he began to see the garden as more than just a getaway. It became a facade, much like the smile she wore for the cameras. A sanctuary where she could find solace without having to explain herself. Yet even in that tranquility, there was a heaviness, the kind that doesn't just vanish after a stroll through the roses. And the most revealing detail, she never invited anyone along. These were her private moments. No assistants, no family, just her in the quiet. He believes that this solitude wasn't just about needing space. It was more about the absence of space anywhere else. From the outside, everything appeared so refined, glamorous events, graceful gestures, and a poised future queen. But in the hidden nooks of the royal gardens, he saw a different story. A woman striving to hold it all together, struggling to catch her breath. And in seeing her, he learned sometimes the most stunning places are the ones where people go to escape. Something Kate doesn't want the world to know. Of all the things the gardener observed over 2 decades, one moment stayed with him more than any royal appearance or political whisper. The way Kate Middleton refused to talk about herself. She was open, friendly even, but the moment the conversation turned to her needs, her personal life, or her well-being, she'd shut it down. Not rudely, just firmly, he said. That's the part he believes most people don't see. Beneath the carefully measured public image, the dazzling gowns, the polished speeches, the photo-perfect family, lies a simple but startling truth. Kate doesn't ask for help. Not from staff, not from insiders, not even, it seems, from herself. And while that might sound admirable on the surface, the gardener insists that it's not good. She carries everything herself. Always has, he explains. The role, the pressure, the expectations. It's like she believes she has to be unbreakable, but no one ever is. He recounts one spring morning when preparations for a children's garden tour were behind schedule. Staff was scrambling, a bench hadn't been moved, planters were off-center, and the press was already assembled. Before anyone could even lift a finger, Kate arrived, and without hesitation, she rolled up her sleeves and started moving things herself. She was dragging flower boxes across gravel in heels. No complaints, just doing it. We tried to stop her, but she insisted, he said. To anybody, that sounds like dedication, but to him, it was a warning sign. She's not supposed to be doing that kind of thing. It's admirable, yes, but it's also telling. She doesn't want to appear like she needs support. She wants to prove she can handle everything on her own. And the truly curious part? It's not that anyone expects her to be perfect. The palace has staff for nearly everything. But over the years, Kate has taken on more and more. More causes, more events, more personal involvement. According to the gardener, he heard that she handwrites many of her charity notes, personally oversees garden project plans, and insists on reviewing briefings herself, even the minor ones. She once told someone in passing, "If I don't take it seriously, who will?" That stuck with me, he said. It wasn't just responsibility, it was pressure. So what doesn't Kate want the world to know? That her perfection isn't effortless, that her poise comes with exhaustion. that behind her grace is a woman who refuses to show strain, not because she has nothing to hide, but because she feels she has no right to struggle. To the gardener, that's the real danger. Not scandal, not misbehavior, but silence. Self-imposed silence. A refusal to be vulnerable in a role that demands endless strength. She thinks that being good means being unshakable, he said quietly. But that's not good. That's how people burn out. In the end, what she hides may not be a secret, but a quiet kind of suffering, and it's not good. She was always different. She was always different, the gardener says, not with scandal in his tone, but with something closer to reverence. Of all the royals he quietly observed over 2 decades, Kate Middleton stood out from the beginning. It wasn't just that she was polite, or thoughtful, or strikingly poised. It was that she carried herself with a sense of intentionality. Everything she did, she meant. Everything she said, she had considered. But what truly set her apart, the gardener insists, was the way she approached motherhood. From the moment Prince George was born, something shifted, he said. Kate didn't just become a mother. She became a mission-driven mother. Every move she made from then on seemed to be with her children's emotional health in mind. That's what he says most people miss. Behind the official portraits and balcony appearances, there's a woman fiercely determined to protect her children's balance between royalty and reality. And William is in it with her. The gardener confirmed it. Those two are a team. You see it in small things. The way they switch off during events. The way they kneel down to speak to the kids at eye level. It's clear they made a decision. Their kids would not grow up in a palace, but in a home. Prince George joins his dad at events like football games where you see them jumping up, shouting, and screaming. They've obviously got a common interest, and that's quite nice. They're introducing him into the royal way of life with something he's actually enjoying doing, rather than taking him to more serious engagements. He continued, "It's the same with Princess Charlotte. You've seen her at the tennis club. Kate's an avid tennis player. I remember doing some work in a garden near Highgrove once, and suddenly William and Kate turned up. This is when they were still dating, and they'd come to play tennis in the neighboring state because there's no tennis court at Highgrove. It's a real passion of Kate's, and her daughter's got that passion as well. On private days, when cameras were nowhere in sight, he'd catch glimpses of the family walking the palace grounds. George racing through the trees with Charlotte close behind, Louis tumbling across the grass, their laughter echoing through rose beds and along the gravel paths. Kate didn't watch from afar. She ran with them, shoeless sometimes. She laughed freely, a stark contrast to the stiff traditions of past generations. When she wasn't with them, she was thinking about them. The gardener remembers overhearing her ask a groundskeeper about a patch of wildflowers she wanted left untouched, for the children to explore. She wanted them to get muddy, to fall, and to discover nature with scraped knees, not just guided tours. She doesn't just want to raise heirs, she wants to raise humans, the gardener said. He also noted how protective she became during major public events, not in a smothering way, but strategic. She would walk slightly behind, keeping an eye on their expressions. She'd lower herself between them during longer ceremonies. She'd whisper when they fidgeted, and then let them be kids when the formality ended. This, the gardener believes, is what makes Kate so different, and why the burden she carries is often overlooked. She's not just trying to fulfill her public role. She's trying to rewrite the model of royal motherhood entirely. She knows what this life can do to people. She's seen it, and she's made it her quiet mission to shield her children from that, without hiding them from the world. And while the public praises her elegance, the gardener sees something else, a mother in the middle of a centuries-old institution trying to grow something new, just the way Princess Diana did. The not good that's raising eyebrows. By now, the gardener's words, "It's not good, but it's not what you think," had left many wondering if there was a hidden scandal quietly buried beneath the surface of palace life. But the truth, he insists, is far more complicated and far more human. Because the thing about Kate Middleton that's raising eyebrows behind palace walls isn't what she's doing wrong. It's what she's doing right, quietly, deliberately, and without applause. He recalls a project few people know about, one she's been quietly building for years. Not for press, not for headlines, just because it matters to her. It began as a simple idea, to open another royal-like garden. The garden was not for ceremonial tours and photo ops, as the gardens in the palace were, but as spaces for real healing. mental health therapy sessions, outdoor classrooms for at-risk children, sensory gardens for children with autism, and even quiet spaces for veterans battling PTSD. The gardener says she was behind it all, and not just with her name on a letterhead. She sometimes showed up to the meetings. She asked about soil types, flower choices, and access paths for wheelchairs, he explained. She wasn't decorating. She was designing with purpose. While most royals delegate, Kate dives in. That character is what has some palace insiders uneasy.
You know, this reminds me so much of Princess Diana, so I really hope she holds it together. I hope their marriage works out and everything, because you would not want a tragic ending.
Not because they disagree with what she's doing, but because of how much she insists on doing herself. One source described her efforts as over-involved. Another said, she doesn't know how to turn it off. The gardener disagrees. Of course she knows how, she just doesn't want to. That's the difference. But the deeper truth is this. Kate's commitment to doing good isn't performative. It's personal. She's seen what public pressure and private pain can do to people. She's lived it. And now, she's planting something more than flowers. She's planting safe spaces, quiet havens, places where people can just breathe when life feels overwhelming. The most telling part was that she asked us not to make announcements about it, he said. She didn't want a big unveiling. She said, this isn't about me, it's about them. That attitude is what makes her different. And, ironically, what's raising eyebrows. In a world where every ribbon cutting is documented, and every initiative has a press release, Kate's refusal to make herself the center of the story breaks tradition. And when it comes to the British royalty, tradition doesn't always like to be broken. There's a quiet rebellion in how she works, the gardener added. Not loud and not rude. She's doing things her way, and that makes many people nervous. So when he finally broke his silence and said, it's not good, he did not mean scandal or failure, but the risk that Kate Middleton is so dedicated, so quietly consumed by doing good, that she may be stretching herself too thin in the process. Yet, despite the concern, he can't help but admire her, because in a place built on appearances, Kate is building something real, and that's what people don't see, or maybe aren't ready to. Time to tell the truth. Stooks didn't speak to expose. He didn't speak for attention, but he spoke because his silence was no longer enough. The world needed to know the truth. And what he revealed about Kate Middleton, despite how it's been twisted in headlines, wasn't scandalous. It was truthful, quiet, and honest. And more than anything, it was deeply human. When he said, it's not good, the world leaned in, ready to scrutinize. Maybe that was part of the problem. People heard those words and expected the worst. A royal secret, betrayal, or even a shadow beneath the crowd. But the truth he shared was far more ordinary, and maybe even more tragic because of that. Stooks believes that Kate Middleton is too good, too dedicated, too giving, and too relentless in her role as a royal, a mother, a wife, and a public figure. He also believes that no one, no matter how composed, can pour from an empty cup forever. He didn't want to hurt her. In fact, he praised her more than anyone, but he felt the world deserved to understand that perfection often comes at a cost. That behind the poised portraits and dazzling events is a woman who wakes up early, stays up late, writes her own letters, researches every project, and plays both parent and princess with equal force, all while being scrutinized by the world. The truth, he said, isn't about a palace scandal. It's about what happens when someone refuses to rest, refuses to show vulnerability, and refuses to step back even for a moment. Kate is the kind of person who won't take the coat off your back even when she's freezing, he said. She'll smile and say she's warm just because she doesn't want to burn anyone.
That's why I said he seems to be in love with her. And I can understand, but he just wants people to know the good things about her, which is awesome. Because I went into this video thinking I was going to hear some bad stuff about her too. And I'm so glad that it didn't live up to that. I'm so glad she's going to make an excellent queen, and I cannot wait to see her in that role. It's going to be amazing. I think that they're going to change the whole history of the royals and how the royals are seen and engaged with the whole world. And I just can't wait to see it. So, till the next one, peace and love. I'm out.